with inadequate fencing, meaning if a vehicle crashed through the fence, there are children directly behind it. Furthermore, we must not forget the tragic case of Poppy Atkinson, a young child who was killed when a car lost control and crashed through a fence. The devastating event is a stark reminder of the real and irreversible consequences of inadequate physical barriers and poor planning near child-focused environments. It is essential that the safety of our most vulnerable residents is prioritised through robust, reinforced fencing and a safe separation between vehicles and any childcare or play areas. We also feel the planting scheme is too close to our building, which in turn could cause subsidence and risk for us to have a higher insurance cost due to plants and trees being close to our building. We must retain permanent and unobstructed access to our building for essential maintenance and safety inspections. The proposed layout threatens to restrict this access, which is unacceptable and may have long-term implications for building upkeep and compliance.
Thank you, Mr. Jenkins.
Is that it?
Yes.
That was a quick 3 minutes.
Well, it was 3 minutes.
Okay.
Would you like to just remain seated for a second?
Sorry.
Would you like to remain seated?
Yeah.
Yeah. Have we any questions? Clarification? James?
Yes, you raised concerns about noise. I'm not too sure where you think the additional noise is going to come from.
Well, what concerns me is the way where the cars are going to be parked. Obviously, noise from the cars parking, idling engines, that sort of thing. I mean, mainly it's more of a pollution aspect rather than noise, because obviously we are a nursery and we make noise as well. But with regard to where the cars are parked, right behind the fence, there is a children's playground. So unless that fencing is of adequate robustness and to maybe reduce noise and the impact of pollution, that would be a better, would be better on the design really, rather than just a 6-foot feather edge fence that, of course, people from the houses would also be able to look over into the nursery. Obviously, there's major safeguarding issues with that as well.
Okay, thank you.
Okay.
Thank you, James. Any other questions? Thank you, Mr. Jenkins.
Oh,
you may take your seat.
Oh, thanks.
Do you want to just turn the mic off, please?
Yeah, sure.
Cheers. Thank you. Right. For the purpose of debate and in accordance with the Council's Constitution meeting procedure rules 19.2 and 19.2.1, I will move the recommendation at item 10, page 29 of the report as follows. It is recommended that the application is approved subject to the conditions contained within section 11 of the report. Do I have a seconder? Thank you. Right, thank you, councillors. Right, members, we will now debate the application. David?
Thank you, Chair. And, thank you, sir, for your presentation. And I think you raised some valid points which were taken into consideration to some extent in the previous application. But obviously, I know that officers will be taking into account, as they do the conditions if planning permission is granted, about the robustness of fencing and the fact that there are vehicles comparatively close to the playground. All right, that said, there are 4 units, there are 4 parking spaces. I think it is described that there is, there is accessibility. So there is adequate space at 7.5.6 for vehicles to enter the site, manoeuvre and exit the site in forward gear. It's probably better not to exit the site in reverse gear, but anyway, that's another story. I am interested at 5.22, Chair, and perhaps this is more of a general point, but it's important nevertheless, that the Parking Beat survey provided by the applicant in February 2025 demonstrates there is sufficient capacity on the vicinity of the site to accommodate the visitor parking required by the development. Fair enough so far as it goes, I understand. The only problem is there are a lot of applications in the quite condensed area of Rushden, all of which have a parking beat survey saying there's adequate capacity for visitor parking. And one wonders, Chair, about the cumulative impact of development and whether that has been taken account of by the parking beat survey or surveys that are going on. So, I mean, I do flag that up as a bit of a hazard. You can't, there are one space per unit, and people do have visitors, people do have deliveries. I notice there's yellow lines outside the property, so that needs to be taken into consideration in this. Planning history, well, we've seen that the previous planning application was turned down because in the eyes of the inspector it was too car dominated at the front. So cars were located at the front of the development but not tucked away behind the development, which I know our friend is objecting to. So it's a little bit of a chicken and egg situation. However, the principle of development has clearly been established. And so having these two fairly condensed units going up has already received permission in principle. So I don't have a large objection to this application. I do think that the Speaker's thoughts about an enhanced fence and his more general points, perhaps regarding safeguarding, need to be taken into consideration. You cannot prohibit development within sight of any of children's playgrounds and so forth. It is not possible to do that, and it wouldn't be right to do that either. But these things do need to be taken into consideration. So I would be quite comfortable to approve the application in principle, subject to the comments made by the Speaker and issues such as the fencing, such as the parking beat survey, to also be taken into consideration when conditions are made. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, David. Councillor?
Thank you, Chair. It's regarding the fence, of course. It does mention in 2.2 that landscaping measures are proposed, including a tall fence to the rear of the site. However, is it possible to condition some more detail on the fence? It has to be a certain height, it has to be reinforced, as the Speaker mentioned. Is that possible to condition that or not?
James, would you like to answer that one?
Thank you, Chair. Obviously if members felt it was appropriate, we could condition additional information in relation to the fence to the rear. Because the Town Council raised similar concerns in relation to screening to the rear of the site, and following these comments the applicant did submit amended plans raising the height of the fence. I believe it's to 2 metres. But if members felt it was appropriate, then there's no reason why we couldn't amend the landscape condition to omit mention of the fence and have a separate condition where we require separate amended fencing details, whether you wish that to be acoustic fencing or taller fencing. So that's something members would be entitled to do.
So if I can just come in and just confirm what's in the recommendation before you. So in the condition 7 in your paper says that they have to do the boundaries as per the landscaping plan. The submitted landscaping plan is annotated to say that there will be a 2.4 metre high close bordered timber fence to the boundary of the nursery and a 1.8 metre high boundary to the other boundary, so i.e. the two sides where it's not going on to the nursery. That's a close bordered fence. So we've already got the additional height, which goes to the heart of one of the elements which has been raised about the privacy. Then it comes down to whether it's reasonable in planning terms to put in place a reinforced fence, for want of better terminology. So if we look at the plan that's on the screen in front of you, we need to think about what are the movements which are taking place in that area. So this is not the situation where we have a boundary treatment on the curve of a fast-moving road with fast-moving traffic. This is the boundary treatment to the back of an enclosed space where vehicles coming into that space are likely to be going at a low speed to manoeuvre into what's quite a tight environment. So it's in your gift to say to us as officers that you want to have further confirmation of what the makeup of the construction of that fence is. But in planning terms, we have to be reasonable in terms of any controls that we impose, and therefore we need to justify why we're incurring additional cost and burden for the applicant. There has to be a planning reason that you want that fence to be reinforced in some way. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Alex. James?
Yes, just on the subject of the fence, I'm satisfied that it's high enough for visual reasons, and I'm sure that will provide some acoustic defence. I'm concerned about manoeuvring of cars, and I recall my grandfather managed to get his foot stuck on the accelerator when he thought it was the brake when he was reversing out of the old Eskdale Medical Centre and shot across Eskdale Street. So there is potential for an issue with a vehicle perhaps potentially careering through the fence. So is it possible to put some kind of bollard or barrier or raised curb there in addition to the fence to prevent a car going through it?
James, would you like to come back on that one? David?
Obviously, such details could sort of form a wider condition, as Alex said, if it was about to be proportionate and necessary. I can't really speak as to specific measures, because obviously there is limited space on the site. Because obviously they still need to achieve sort of circulatory space around the car parking spaces. So I can't speak as to what specific measures would be appropriate, but obviously if members felt it was appropriate, we could have a more general condition relating to the rear fence, whereby we seek final details such as obviously height, materiality, but then also obviously any measures to prevent cars obviously driving through them. But unfortunately, I can't really speak as to what specific measures may be able to be accommodated at this time. Thanks, Chair.
Thank you, James. Frank?
On a separate subject to the fence, the speaker mentioned that they were already experiencing drainage problems with the in the vicinity, and this would increase pressure on the existing drainage. Has that been looked at all?
James?
Thank you, Chair. So we have condition 15, which requires final drainage details prior to works commencing. So as part of this condition, the drainage of the site would be managed to make sure, it's, at the very least, there's no worsening of the existing situation. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, James. Any more questions? No? Everybody's happy. Okie dokie. So,
sorry, Chair, just to confirm, so at the moment the recommendation stands as printed, so there's no proposed change to condition 7. So condition 7 would secure close bordered fencing 2.4 metres high to the rear boundary of the nursery, 1.8 metres high to the side, but it would be the normal close bordered fence construction. We've had no proposal or seconder to change that condition. Thank you, Chair.
okie dokie. So I think we've had a good discussion on this item, and recommendations as previously detailed has been moved and seconded, and we will now go to the vote. Sorry, James.
Yeah, just on the fence at the back, is there some way we can include a condition or amendment to make it somehow more robust or prevent some physical barrier to a car careering through?
Okay, thank you, James.
Yes, so I think it's within your gift to propose a change. So my suggestion, I'm looking at James, my suggestion would be that the easiest thing to do would be an amendment to condition 7, so that rather than condition 7, which at the moment just secures what's already on the plans, we ask for submission of details to be supplied to us before the development commences, and we could make sure that the detail of the construction of the fence, including any measures to prevent cars being able to go through that fence, that is something that we could change condition 7 to. We'd need a proposer and seconder first.
James?
Yeah, I'll be happy to propose that rewording.
Okay. Des, would you like to second that? Yeah, okay. So shall we have a vote on David?
Just speaking to the amendment, just looking at the plan, I'm not unsympathetic to the amendment. I think it's not a bad idea. But please note that space is very limited. So putting bollards or crash barriers or other material to stop a reasonably high-speed impact going through the fence would probably mean that you would lose 2 of your 4 parking spaces. So it's just something to take into consideration. With that said, I'm happy with the amendment, so long as it, that takes that problem into consideration as well.
Thank you, David. So would you still like to put that amendment forward, James?
Yes, I would, Chair.
Okay. So...
Sorry. I'm thinking forward into the future. So what I want to make sure is we're all on the same page as to what we're talking about, so we don't end up in the situation in the future where we have a difference of opinion. So we can't, as officers, tell you what the solution to this problem is. If you're going to look to make a change to the condition, there has to be a reasonable prospect that that condition can be complied with in its amended form for it to be a valid condition. In my view as an officer, looking at the nature of the layout here, the fact that cars are likely to be going at a very low speed, but we're considering the example given in terms of somebody pressing the accelerator rather than the brake, I am not anticipating that we're looking for a highly engineered, sophisticated solution which includes bollards or reinforcement. I think that what I had in mind when we talked about changing this condition would be something of the nature of having reinforced concrete pillars in between any fencing elements or longer foundation depths for the posts, so that there is a slightly more rigidity to the fence than might be normal. So as long as we're clear in terms of what we're seeking to achieve with this condition, if you're seeking to have reinforced bollards and things of that nature, then we may have a concern that might not be able to be accommodated and we can't comply with it. So it's just to make sure we're clear on what the level of reinforcement is we're looking for from this fence.
So on that, sorry, Des.
Yes, Chair. I was just thinking that it's more about the reinforcement of, say, part of the fence, which would then preclude a vehicle from going through it without there being extra bollards or, safety structures there. So we're really talking about the strength of it, I suppose, really, aren't we? Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Des. So would we like to put an amendment forward still, James, on that basis?
Yes, I'm happy for the project's design team to come up with a reasonable proposal.
Okay. And would you like to add that onto the planning thing now?
Well, I feel the wording Alex gave was satisfactory.
So I think I think if I can be of assistance, perhaps the suggested amendment is to delegate powers to officers to amend Condition 7 to secure additional plans which demonstrate how appropriate levels of reinforcement have been added to the fencing design to the rear of the site to prevent cars crossing the boundary at low speed. The reason I'm saying low speed is that then gives a level of attainment in terms of what that level of reinforcement has to be in reasonableness. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Alec. Right, so can we take a vote on that then? Show of cards, please. On the amendments, yes, sorry, David. So that's 4, 6, 8. 8 for Carol. And no abstentions, so that is carried. Right, okay, so we'll actually go on to the actual application now. So, we'll take a vote on the actual application now. So can I have a show of cards? 4. So that's 8 for, no abstentions. So that is carried. Thank you very much. We'll move on to item 5 now, which is NK-2024-06702 Tresham Street, Kettering, NN168RS on page 37. I'll hand over to Natalie Westgate to present the report to the committee. Thank you, Natalie.
Thanks, Chair. There's no updates for this one. And it's for an application for change of use from retail to 8-bed, 8-person house in multiple occupation. It includes a storage room, a bin store, cycle store shown on the plans, and there's also amendments with additional windows to the front and dormer extension and roof lights to the rear. During the course of the application, it's been reduced from a 10-bed, 10-person HMO down to an 8-bed, 8-person HMO. The photos here show that the site's sort of a vacant previous retail plot in a residential location with some commercial uses. The policy supports residential in growth area. The design would complement the building, and the dormer being located to the rear would be less visible to the street. The site's located near to the town centre with bus links, and there is the cycle storage provision. Recommend approval subject to conditions. Any questions?
Councillors? Okay, we don't have no questions. Thank you, Natalie. We've received one request to address the meeting. That's from Lux Williams of Kettering Town Council, if you'd like to come forward.
Good evening, Chair and Council.
You have 3 minutes, Lux. Thank you.
So I'm here on behalf of Kettering Town Council through my capacity as the Deputy Chair of the Planning Committee. Back in March, we objected based on parking after dropping 2 previous complaints. In the local vicinity, our mapping for our neighbourhood plan shows that there are already 3 large HMOs in the vicinity, all of whom are competing for limited parking spaces in those 2 roads of Tresham and the one next to it. The officers at highways have suggested that the shop had 11 cars there, which would reduce it down to 3. However, the shop has not been open since December. So it's actually an increase of 8 compared to the current property. I don't have a huge amount to say other than that.
Thank you, Lex. If you could just stay seated for a second. Councillors, have we got any questions? David?
Just one, Chair. Thank you very much for that. It's always good to get the local perspective. I appreciate that there have been, a number of HMOs in our town centres in North Northamptonshire, including Kettering. I'm interested at section 7.4 of the report. There is clearly an issue with on-street parking, but I'm also interested in apparent decrease in parking demand from the current retail use. I appreciate it's probably not being used, but the current retail use, as I think you pointed out, was 11 and is now, and with this development is now perhaps 8. Also with HMOs. Not everybody who is in an HMO necessarily has a motor vehicle. I just wonder if you've got any thoughts or comments about that. And, it's a question of balance, of course, as all these things are.
Well, while it is quite close to the town centre and people will hopefully be trying to get jobs in the town centre, I can attest from my own personal experience that there aren't many jobs in the town centre. Most of them require a car to get to. So it would not be unreasonable for all 8 occupants to have a car in order to get to the jobs in Kettering.
Thank you, David. Any more questions? Thank you, Lux. If you turn your speaker off, that'd be great. Thank you. Right, for the purpose of debate and in accordance with the Council's Constitution, Meeting Procedures Rule 19.2 and 19.21, I will move the recommendation at item 10, page 51 of the pack as follows. It is recommended that the application is approved subject to the conditions contained in section 11 of this report. Do I have a seconder? Thank you. Right, gentlemen, if you'd like to start a debate. David.
Thank you, Chair. Rather following up on the question I just asked of the Speaker. First of all, there is often a prejudice against HMOs, as I think it's come to this committee and this committee's forebears many times. There is an objection to HMOs. I don't totally hold with that. I feel that HMOs are a perfectly valid part of a housing mix, and anybody who has had kids at university or been at university themselves, the younger members, such as yourself, Chair, you will probably have lived in an HMO yourself. So nothing wrong per se with HMOs. However, on this particular occasion, this particular site is fairly unobjectionable, and I do note what I was saying a moment ago at 7.4.5, that there is a net decrease in parking demand over the existing retail use from 11 spaces down to 8 spaces. Okay. I also note, I take consideration of the Speaker's point that there are fewer jobs in Kettering Town Centre and there is perhaps more reliance on motor vehicles to get somewhere else. It bothers me, Chair, that there isn't, in this case, amazingly, a parking beat survey. And so, the applicant hasn't apparently shown that they can support their application about on-street parking elsewhere. And I think it would be helpful if they had done so, or if they can be conditioned to do so before. But we can't do it because we're either going to give planning permission or we're not for this particular development. But it does bother me a bit on that. Other than that, most of the third-party objections that have been raised are matters which are not evidenced. I mean, of course, you know, the discussion that often happens is of sort of fear of antisocial behaviour and so on. Again, so if you can evidence that, then that's a fair enough thing to take into consideration. But of course, if you can't, then it isn't. So I don't have huge objections to this in principle, but I do think on this occasion there are problems that need to be addressed, and I would be interested in the officer's opinion about the parking issue. Thank you.
David, thank you very much. Would you like to come back on that, Natalie?
Thank you, Councillor. As I'd said previously, it's not just that it's sort of within the town centre use. There are good bus services nearby as well, so sort of the sustainable transport element. As you can see from the plan, there was an element where they have got the provision of cycling with it built within the scheme. But in terms of the highway element itself, we do tend to take on board what the highways officer said, and they haven't actually put in an objection. They've pointed out the reduction in numbers, but they've done it as an observation rather than as an objection.
Thank you, Natalie.
Sorry, Chair, I beg your pardon.
That's okay, David.
Through you, Chair. It's a reduction from the original retail development apparently had 11 spaces, and this proposal has only 8 spaces. So in terms of capacity in the parking system, it's actually a saving of 3 spaces. But, you know, I was just interested that, you know, it is still you know, it's still an issue which will, of course, be common to many town centre locations.
David, thank you very much. Paul?
Yeah, I'd just like to point out, basically, I have a family that live in that area and some friends that live in that area, and the whole of that area is a mare for parking. It is, literally, if you leave your space, you ain't going to come back to it. So it's an issue in the whole place. So it doesn't matter what, you know, but as you said, as David said, they're gaining 3 spaces. So to be fair, I think my member of family in that road would like to gain 3 spaces in their road. They'd be very happy. But, get in there. Yeah, if they could get in there. That's it, really. Thank you.
Cheers. Thanks, Paul. Dennis?
Yes, Chair, just reference the parking situation. Are we saying that there's actually parking spaces available for this HMO separate to all the other parking spaces on the street, or have they got to work their way in with that?
Alex?
Thank you. So if I can clarify exactly what we're saying. So what we're saying is there is no on-site car parking. There's no car parking spaces to serve this use. However, so this HMO will be reliant upon on-street car parking and will be competing for that on-street car parking with all the other uses in this area. What the Highways Authority officers have highlighted is that the demand on that parking, on-street car parking in this area, that the shop would have had was 11 spaces, and the demand that the HMO will have is 8 spaces. So it's the level of demand upon the spaces available within the street network around this site which is dropping. On that basis, the Highways Officer is saying there would not be a severe impact, and that is the planning test for a grounds for refusal. So there's no physical spaces, it's about the demand on the on-street car parking in the area dropping. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Alex. Des?
Yeah, just to reiterate what Paul's been saying for that area there, I mean, just as anecdotally, I went to a meeting at the Kettering Council the other night there at the church, and to find, around about 7 o'clock, to find a space down those streets was practically impossible. I had to park quite a long way away. But going back to the whole parking thing, like I was saying for the HMO, it's only a 10-minute walk into the bus station, and there is quite a good bus service, you know, within Kettering for the surrounding areas. And if they're saying, well, there's no jobs there and the people are coming that will use them, the HMOs, then, you know, you'll find that there's good bus routes and stuff like that.
Thank you, Des. Des?
Thank you, Chair. Is it possible to go? Oh, yeah, brilliant. So where it says number 15 there, that was my workplace from 2005 for about 7 years. And being that I worked there when it was an office, it's now flats, I can testify that there is, even with a car park, which that building has, parking was always an absolute nightmare along there. It's weird, as Councillor Brackenbury said, that there's not a parking beat survey. I would have expected to see that. And while I do think it's great that they've included secure cycle storage inside the building, and I'd love for all of those residents to cycle, I don't think that's going to happen. So I'm really not happy about the lack of parking provision here. Thank you.
Thank you, Des. Any more questions? James?
Yes, thank you, Chair. Yes, yeah, I like the. I'm glad to see that the building, which I think has been empty for a while, and I'm sure there is issues with letting it as a retail or commercial space. There is a proposal on the table to bring it back into use and to make it for accommodation. I note that the number of dwellings, I think originally there was an application in there for 15 on this site, and that's been reduced down to 8. So that's good that it's not being too overdeveloped. The space standards in the rooms are good for an HMO, so they're very reasonable, sort of flat type. On the, it is a little bit odd that there's no parking beat survey. I think there was a note in the report about it due to the proximity with the town centre and the bus services. But I'm going to be a bit of an outlier here and say contradict quite a few of the other councillors, but I don't see the parking as too bad an issue in the area. I drove past along the street today, and there was parking spaces available, and I'm sure there's parking spaces available. So if a parking beat survey was done, I think it would pass that test, in all honesty. There's parking on Montague Street, so I don't think the parking concerns outweigh the benefits of this development. And I would just add, we have 6,000 people waiting on the council housing list. So that's my thoughts on it.
Thank you for that, James. Anybody else? Right, so it's been moved and seconded. I think we should go for the vote and show of cards, please. So we've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 for, and 1 against. And that is carried. Thank you very much. And we're down to the final item now, and that is NK 2024-0054, land west of the Swan Public House, Griffin Road, Braybrooke. I will hand over to Natalie again, please, for your presentation.
Thanks, Chair. There's no updates for this one, and the application is for 5 dwellings with associated works with land to the rear of west of Swan Public House in Braybrooke. The location plan shows that it's sort of currently vacant, sort of shrub, grass, trees in a residential area, but also adjacent to the countryside. It's within Braybrooke Conservation Area, adjacent to a Grade 2 listed building, the old rectory, and has tree preservation order of the birch tree. The site forms 3 dwellings were allocated in the site-specific local plan part 2, and then the other 2 at the north were allocated within Braybrooke neighbourhood plan. So all 5 added together are actually within policy allocated sites. The dwellings are, as you can see, mainly single storey, and there is one two-storey, but it is at a lower level, as this photo here shows. The street scene also shows that the building in lighter colour is the listed building, which is both on slightly higher land, but also more sort of dominating still than what's being proposed. And also there's separation distances. There would be 14 parking spaces within the scheme. This shows the access from the main street adjacent to the Swan public house. This is it sort of looking from within the street back down one of the adjacent properties. That's the grade 2 listed building, the old rectory, and that's shown it from a different angle of the site. And that's shown it from where the two nearest dwellings were, to show that actually there's significant distances. That's showing that there's the land goes down, so you do have significant drops within the site, and it's sort of open. And then you have where the two dwellings are a sort of more agricultural sort of feel surrounding that. We're recommending to approve subject to conditions. Thank you.
Thank you, Natalie. Any members got any questions? I think James beat you on that one.
Thank you. Yes, Natalie. There's reference to an old granary and being consumed by a swale or something. I wasn't too clear what that was about. I don't know if you could elaborate.
So near to where the swale, where the pond is, if I get the relevant plan up, there's reference to an old granary. However, as it's by the pond, we sort of didn't feel that, given the benefits of new housing and the fact that it sort of still remained open, we didn't feel that that sort of overcomes that issue to recommend refusal. Oh, sorry. I believe it's sort of in this area. Oh, sorry, just getting used to the thing. Yeah, so it's an existing structure, sort of in this element here. Oh. It's not in the photos, no. Trying to see if I can find it in the neighbourhood plan. when I sort of did a detailed walk around, I didn't sort of see anything that was, you know, obvious, that looked of historic value that needed preserving.
Okay, thank you, Natalie. James?
Yes, it's just that it's in the officer's report, and it's been flagged up by Braybrooke Parish Council as something they want to protect, but it's not clear exactly what it is they're looking to protect. I don't know if it's just it's the foundations are left, or is it anything above ground, or is it an existing building as such? It's unclear what it is we're being asked to protect and consider, and the importance of that.
Thank you, James. Sorry, David, would you like to come for your question next?
Yeah, just to to load up Natalie. Yes, one or two small matters. Obviously, it seems that there is a potentiality of future maintenance of common areas, and that consideration be paid to adoption of part of a roadway on the site. Obviously, that's going to have implications for our friends in highways. The lack of biodiversity net gain is disappointing, and I appreciate the timing of that is it's fine, because you know it isn't required on this occasion, but it's a bit of a pity. And the settlement hierarchy, while I appreciate that the principle of development is established because it's either in the neighbourhood plan or it's in the Part 2 plan. So I haven't really got a problem with it. It's just, again, this is sort of greenfield development in the open countryside, and you know, maybe you know that is not necessarily ideal, but equally you've got to put, you know, development has got to go somewhere, and it seems that the principle of development has been established.
Councillor, did you have a question of clarification for the planning officer? Because I don't think we've opened.
Oh no, excuse me.
Did you have a question of clarification? We're still at question of clarification.
We're on the clarification for the planning officer.
Oh yeah, well, okay. Just some thoughts that I'm sure the planning officer will ably clarify in due course, if not. But no, I mean, it's not a question at this point, sorry.
Thank you, David. Paul?
Sorry, yeah, through the chair. Could you actually point out where the swale is on there?
Natalie, would you be able to point it out on the thing? But we've got the agent speaking, so we might be able to get a better understanding from the agent as well, Paul.
Yeah, okay, thank you.
Is that okay for you, Paul?
Sure.
Yeah. Where that little arrow is, mate. Have we got any more questions for clarity for the officer? No more questions then. So we have received one request to speak, and that's Mr. George Burton, agent for Aspects Building, if you'd like to come forward. Thank you very much. You have 3 minutes if you can turn on your speaker. Thank you.
Before I start, would it help to clarify those points for you? Would it help if I clarify the points that you've just been asking before I speak?
No, if you do your 3 minutes, and then we'll come back to that.
Okay.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Well, thank you, Chair, for allowing the opportunity to speak in support of this application and to reinforce the recommendation to approve. This is a relatively simple proposal on land allocated partly in the local plan and partly in the Braybrooke neighbourhood plan, and in respect of which, considering the extensive determination period, there has been very little discussion over the architectural and physical merits of the project. Most of the concerns raised by interested parties, including the parish council and neighbours, whether direct planning issues or not, have been addressed in the process. These included the retention of a semi-historic brick grain store at the parish council's request, construction, traffic management and parking, provision of bungalows as preferred locally, working hours limitations given the village location, ongoing maintenance of common areas, building of the access to adoptable standard and the retention of open space by a TPO'd copper beach for communal use. And further, drainage and heritage impact assessments were undertaken to protect the old rectory to the north and appropriate boundary treatment specified. The main thrust of the proposal, however, was to deliver to the local community the elements they sought through the neighbourhood plan process, in which there was a distinct emphasis on the proposal of bungalows and enhancement of biodiversity and wildlife corridors that stood out as exceptional and in need of addressing. The developer, somewhat unusually, is very conscious of the need to enhance the natural world and was keen, therefore, to enhance a somewhat neglected site with its skeletal frames of old barns and piles of disused materials, and transform it with the provision of 80% bungalows into a visibly improved area. This despite the unavoidable construction aspects and thus capturing the essence of preceding engagement with the parish and the community, which commenced with the public presentation in January 2024 and thus bringing it to fruition via the scheme. Achieving this simple aim has not been easy due to the non-standard approach of over-provision of enhancements necessary to address local aspirations. Importantly, however, officers and applicant are in agreement on the proposal as set out in the officer's report, and the development will extend the wildlife corridor identified as running across the north of the site in the neighbourhood plan into an uninterrupted loop of enhanced native trees, hedges and maximum value planting around and within the site, such that this extension to existing semi-natural assets will be both significant and striking. In conclusion, it is considered, therefore, that the development proposal wholly meets the commitments in both the local and neighbourhood plans as neatly described and assessed in the report before you. Thank you.
Thank you, George. If you'd just like to stay seated. Members, have we got any questions of clarity for the gentleman? James, sorry.
Yes, thank you, George. Yep. Could you clarify about the old granary and the swale, if you would, please?
Yes, indeed. The grain store is a very small, probably about 8 foot square brick building, tiled, and it's on brick staddles as opposed to stone staddle stones. It was originally proposed to remove it, but after the parish council discussions and engagement with local people, we decided to retain it because it does have some relationship to the old rectory historically. And so that is still present. I can point it out if you like. Where the single blue tree is, straight above me here, immediately above that is the swale, that rectangle with curved edges, and to the left of that, the west, is the grain store. So you've got a row of buildings running up into the site, and the grain store is the end one. Hopefully that's helpful.
Thank you for clarifying that.
Thank you, James. Dennis?
Oh yeah, just on that same vein, it says on here, it says an interesting artefact near the swale. Could you clarify what that is?
I assume that's the grain store. Yeah. There aren't any other interesting artefacts to my mind.
Frank?
It states that 4 letters from 3 people were received about some issues about whether or not the concern for the trees at the back of plot 1 would be removed once they had, would there be anything to stop the resident from removing them? Was any of the issues that were raised through the letters been addressed with the people sending them in?
Yes, that actually forms part of the biodiversity net gain proposal, so that woodland would be protected, and in fact it's going to be extended and enhanced with in order to achieve the biodiversity net gain requirement. So that would be protected for a 30-year period through that process.
Thank you, Frank. Any more questions? Okay, George, you may as well go and sit down. Thank you very much. Right, for the purpose of debate and in accordance with the Council's Constitution Meeting Procedures Rules 19.2 and 19.21, I'll move the recommendation at item 10, page 78 of the report as follows. It is recommended that the application is approved subject to the conditions contained within section 11 of this report. Do I have a seconder? Thank you very much. Right, thank you, councillors. Have a debate. Anybody? David?
Yeah, just again through you, Chair. I mean, I was...
Carry on, David.
I was grateful to the Speaker for clarifying some of the issues I, in fact, did raise slightly out of order earlier, especially in view of the biodiversity net gain, which I think you touched on, and I also see in the report there is some reasonably noticeable enhancements. Other than that, again, with the principle of development that has been established either by the neighbourhood plan or by the Part 2, local plan document, yeah, I mean, it seems a reasonably pleasant, not terribly controversial and fairly high quality development. And most of the issues around that have been raised by Braybrooke Council and other parties seem to have been addressed, so I think it's a reasonably sensible scheme.
Thank you for that, David. Have we anybody else? No? Okay then. I think yeah, we'll go to the vote, and if we can open all the relevant cards up, and so we've got 4, 6, 8, 9, 4, so that's carried unanimously. And so that brings us to the close of the meeting, and no further business with us, so I'll close the meeting at 20:08. Thank you very much, everybody.